Shalom Aleichem. This is an obituary for Rav Chasid, Reb Dovid Mishilovin, who passed away today, Asara B'Tevis, Tafshin Pei Beis. I want to tell you my memories of this very special Yid, this Chasid, who I personally knew. When the Rebbe sent my friends and myself as older Bacharim, students, to the yeshiva in Los Angeles in 1981, I met him. He came to Los Angeles, I believe, in 1979. He was a Rebbe in the Cheder. He was a Sefer of Stam, Sifri Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzahs. And this was a continuation of what I saw in Crown Heights, Russian Chassidim, Lubavitch Chassidim. But Reb Dovid stood out in several ways that really put a new perspective on what we call in Lubavitch Bruderschaft, brotherliness. Anash is an acronym for Anshe Shleimenu. True Anash are those that feel brotherly love. Mein Stickel Brot is deiner wie meiner. My piece of bread first belongs to you, and only afterwards does it belong to me, as it says in the Svarim. Reb Dovid was a humble person. I recall seeing him also in Congregation Levi Yitzchak, which just recently lost its Rav, Tayr Chasid and Shliach, Reb Shimon Reichik. We made a clip about that too several weeks ago. At that time, Reb Shimon was not the Rav of the shul. I don't think they had a Rav at that time. Anyway, and he would be learning every day in the morning right after Shachris with elderly Russian people. The Rebbe instituted Tferes Kainim to learn with older Yidden who have time to study, to learn because they're not working. And Reb Dovid and Rabbi Arnold Zol Zayin Gesund were two of the individuals that Rabbi Kunin, I believe, appointed to do this. And you understand, here you're talking about a chassid who davens like a chassid, he learns like a chassid, he gives tzedakah like a chassid. He's one shtik chassid. He's saturated, not with oil, like a latke and a donut from Hanukkah. He's saturated with Chassidischkeit. Real Chassidic warmth are in his bones. How did I see that? So the following I remember like it's now, as clear as you see the clouds and the sky, it's blue. I remember this like it's now. This was the middle of the Sfiras HaOmer. I don't recall which of the Sfira, but it was when we were counting the Omer between Pesach and Shavuos. This was 1982, I believe. So it's 40 years ago, Arboin Shnin. And I happened to be standing next to Reb Dovid. It was the middle of the week, and in the yeshiva Beis Medrash, we were davening Ma'ariv. Everyone's davening. Rabbi Shochat's davening, the Rosh Hashiva, the Talmidim, the students. And Reb Dovid Mishilovin happened to be there, so he's davening Ma'ariv. After the Shemon Esrei, the Baal Tefillah, the Chazan, makes the bracha al Sfiras HaOmer, and everyone says there's Sfiras HaOmer, and we know how we look and sound when we say many times Sfiras HaOmer, Baruch Atah Hashem, Sfiras HaOmer, 1, 2, 3, Chad, Shtayim, Shalosh, in and out. I happened to notice the way this Reb Dovid said Sfiras HaOmer in the middle of a weekday. My friends, I promise you, he had more kavanah in that bracha that he made al Sfiras HaOmer than we have Yom Kippur by Nila. He stood in this place, he said the bracha mila b'mila, word for word, without fanfare, making with his head and his hands and shaking his body, and he started to shake, but not crazy, But he said, Baruch Ato Hashem Elikeinu Melech Oilom Asher Kidishonu B'mitzvayso V'tzivonu Al Sfiras Ha'emer Hayoim Yoim, and he said the day. His face turned red. I saw it. I was standing right next to him. I was blown away. A Yid who can say a bracha in the middle of a weekday, there's nothing special happening, or at least we think it's not special, and to him, it's God, it's Torah, it's Rebbe, it's Mashiach, it's a bracha. Rabbi say, this was Reb Dovid Mishilovin. I'm not telling you about his Mesiras Nefesh in Rusland, which he shared with me about how in his house davened Reb Chasid, who was a wanted man by the KGB, and he hid in the Mishilovin house. And he told me many stories. I wrote them down in my book, Farbrengen, very original stories, which he heard, which he saw himself, and he also heard from a Chasid named Reb Benjamin Maroz, who he always spoke of. This Benjamin Maroz, they made Chasid Shemalav Malkas, and he always spoke about Benjamin Maroz. And he told me that this Berke Chaim once came to him, and he said, Dovid, he told me he was 17 or so, and he saw that Dovid, that he was checking his tefillin, if it's Beinei Necha, between the eyes, exactly, if it's that way, as Dovid was putting on tefillin, and Berke Chaim was hiding in the house, saw it. He ran over to him, and he said, Dovid, was is das? He never saw a little mirror. So he says, a spiegel. It's a mirror, and you can see if the tefillin are exactly in between the eyes. So he said, Dovid, krieg mir einer. Could you please get me one? Ich will euch. I want to also make sure my tefillin are beinei necha. He told me at the time that the Berke Chaim was a religious fanatic. Any type of chumrah, any type of hidur, any type of way of beautifying a mitzvah, he did it. And that's why sometimes he put on tefillin several times, whatever. I'm not going to talk about Berke Chaim. He's a class for himself. From what I heard from Dovid Mishilovin about the Berke Chaim. But this is the punchline. Then Berke Chaim went back to what he was doing, and Dovid went back to davening. A few minutes later, Berke Chaim runs over to Dovid Mishilovin, the bacher, the 17-year-old, and says to him, don't get it for me. Ich will es nicht. I don't want the mirror. He looks at him. He just asked me for the mirror so he can do the mitzvah better. Beinei necha. He said, Lei sachmoid. One of the 10 commandments is you shouldn't be jealous. I had a jealousy in my heart when I saw you using it. I got jealous of you using it, and I therefore wanted that as well. It's coming from Lei sachmoid, from jealousy. I don't want it. Rabbi say, you know what we're talking about? We're talking about such Yidden. We're talking about Russian Chassidim, Lubavitch Chassidim, that any iota of feeling, of ego, jealousy, is treif, is puzzle, is invalid, is not kosher, is disgusting. Dovid Mishilovin, Reb Dovid grew up with such Yidden. His own father, a Baal Mesiras Nefesh. His brothers, he has a brother, 2 living brothers, Reb Mishilovin in Crown Heights, from the Svarim store, and he has a brother, a Mashpir, Reb Michal Mishilovin in Nachlas Har Chabad. I met this Michal once when he came to visit Dovid. Also, a Yid, I asked him, I said, how are we able to have real v'ahavta l'reyacha kamecha, to love another as yourself? It's impossible. By nature, we love ourselves more. And then I said to him, how can I not look sometimes at someone with a negative eye? They did something wrong, they did something to me wrong, whatever the case. He turned to me and he said, Ich verstehe nicht. He didn't understand my question. How could it be otherwise? And I looked at him like, my friend, are you from this world or you fell off the moon? That's who Reb Michal Mishilovin is, a Beinoni of Tanya. Thin. Like he didn't eat in days, didn't sleep, And he davened with such fire. The Mishilovins, they daven with fire. Rabbi say, his son, Reb Dovid's son, Yossi is my brother-in-law. I know him well. I know his brother Benny well. Baruch, Michael, who was in Moscow. All fine Chassidish Yidden. May the able to comfort them. Should only have simchas. There's no question that your father, Reb Dovid, who happened to be my shver's mechutin, because Yoska married my wife's youngest sister, the Chamadina. So the family knows each other well. The mother, Yoska's mother, Reb Dovid's wife, was Reb Baruch Duchman's daughter, I believe. Came from Geshe Chabad Chassidim. So you're talking about the real Chabad Hasidic stock. But I want to tell you something. Reb Dovid Mishilovin did not act with gaiva because he was Geshe. No way. I never smelled it in him. I didn't see any trace. He was a bittul dike yid, a humble yid. Fire. I love talking to him because when you spoke to Reb Dovid, he energized you with his fire and excitement about a mitzvah. And this is something that we need today, Rabbi say. When we do a mitzvah, when you put tefillin on in the morning, you should start jumping from the excitement of doing the Eibishter's mitzvah. When you have a chance to do a mitzvah, and a mitzvah isn't only a mitzvah between God and yourself, a mitzvah between man and man. You should do it with entire excitement, where your body physically starts moving. The Able should help that what we learned from this tiny Yid passed on. He had Arichas Yom 92, Tzadik Beis Shona 92. The Able should help that he should he should rise from the dust together with Mashiach, the Rebbe, and all the tzaddikim, and will be zeicher to the Gula Shleima with Mashiach Tzidkenu Yerushalayim and HaKodesh. Amen ve'amen.